Hello folks, friends and movie lovers, welcome back to the channel and to the latest instalment of the movies in review and part 2 talking about Quiet Places, because I would like to continue talking about Quiet Places, very quiet places. For this instalment the focus will be A Quiet Place 2, the sequel movie to the movie discussed in my last video, A Quiet Place 1. Now this one follows on from the events of A Quiet Place 1. In this movie, the surviving members of the Abbott family go on a journey to find other survivors of the alien invasion, which at this point was approximately a year and a half to 2 years prior. However, as this installment starts, we are transported back in time to day one and witness the invasion of the aliens. One would be forgiven for the confusion given the release of the prequel movie A Quiet Place Day 1, which specifically looks at the alien invasion and the period of adjustment to living with the aliens and the need to avoid making a sound. I suppose the biggest clue in making the distinction between the two would be in recognition at the start of A Quiet Place 2 of the store and pharmacy that the Abbott family enter for supplies and medication at the start of A Quiet Place 1 on day 89. One big clue to this is in the brief sightings of the toy space shuttle rocket that became the instrument of Bo's passing in A Quiet Place 1. Something that I thought was effective in this movie is in showing the transition between the life they had before and the life under the domination of the aliens, something that gets reprised in A Quiet Place Day 1. However, specifically to this story, the Abbott family learn of their daughter's deafness, changes the nature of the transition, making efforts to communicate with each other easier as they would already be fluent in the use of ASL, American Sign Language. What I think somewhat jars is the jump in time between day 1 of A Quiet Place 2 to over a year and a half after the invasion, because essentially it means jumping over the plot of A Quiet Place 1 to get to the plot of the surviving members of the Abbott family going on a journey to find other survivors. Briefly bringing A Quiet Place 2 to an earlier point of the story before the start of A Quiet Place 1 to witness the invasion of the aliens definitely reinforced the vibes of The War of the Worlds by H.G. Wells. However, as the story progresses and the Abbott family continue on their journey along, with a friend, Emmett encountered some bandits that eventually get slaughtered by an alien through a carefully crafted plan by Emmett, gave off vibes for me of a far more dystopian story, The Walking Dead, where the degradation and eventual collapse of all civilized societies sees the threats coming not just from the aliens, but from the survivors that have formed into groups and communities operating to their own sets of rules and morals. All in all, I still thought it was a great movie and loved how it developed in this way, in spite of the jarring effect it has jumping from day 1 before the start of A Quiet Place 1 to over a year and a half later past the end of A Quiet Place 1 to continue the story. That being said, I'm not so sure how else to get into this installment. Given that it's supposed to be a follow-on from A Quiet Place 1, I wondered whether doing a brief scene of recap, something similar to what was done in Harry Potter and the Deathly Hallows Part 1 and Harry Potter and the Deathly Hallows Part 2, where the final scene of Part 1 that sees us flying over an expanse of water to an island, where we are witness to some stone blocks being moved off a grave and the slab underneath them being broken to reveal Dumbledore's dead body, still clutching what we now know is the Elder Wand, which we see is stolen by Voldemort, becomes the opening scene of Part 2, thereby becoming the vehicle which helps the story to continue further past the point in the next installment. While I'm not sure how effective this would have been, it would have helped to avoid the jarring effect of the jump in time in A Quiet Place 2. One positive thing for the way it is that now that there is a point of comparison with the prequel, A Quiet Place Day 1, which explores the beginning of the invasion and gives us a brief insight into life before the invasion from a different viewpoint. Different characters, different place in New York. We are able to explore from a fresh perspective. Okay folks, that's all I've got for this one. Keep an eye out for part 3 when I react and review to the third instalment to this franchise and prequel to A Quiet Place 1 called A Quiet Place Day 1. Thank you so much for listening to the end. Please remember, if you haven't done so already, please hit the like and subscribe buttons and click the bell icon for notifications and updates on when more reactions and reviews get uploaded. My name is Simon and this is the Movies in Review. Thank you for listening.